Hello and welcome to NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. Today we're coming to you from the Naboisho Conservancy here in the Greater Masai Mara. And this episode has been made possible thanks to Safari Link that flew us here, and also thanks to the Eagle View camp that accommodated us here in Naboisho. And this is why we're here. Made up of 50,000 acres of land and located in the Greater Masai Mara, Naboisho Conservancy lies north of the Mara Game Reserve, among other conservancies. It is home to a large population of elephants, lions, cheetah, leopards, giraffes and wildebeest and many others. About 550 families own the land in Naboisho. Established as a conservancy in 2010, which means the area is protected, the landowners moved off the mainland to smaller parcels of land to provide space for the wild animals to roam and feed, and as a response to the challenges being encountered, such as intensive herding, off-road vehicle activity and camping. While the animals benefit hugely from this, so too does the community. Based on the number of acres they own, money made from conservancy fees paid by tourists goes directly back to the landowners. The 6 lodges and camps have also created 142 jobs for the communities in hotels. The establishment of conservancies in the Greater Masai Mara has proven to be the most beneficial land use option for both the wildlife and communities, who benefit in at least 15 different ways. From guaranteed payments, legal and controlled grazing of cattle, local employment, infrastructure and conserving the nation's wildlife and habitat, among others. Naboisho, which means coming together in Maasai, scooped the overall winner of the African Responsible Tourism Awards, proving it is a successful conservancy model that works. So Naboisho Conservancy is indeed a winner, but not all of the areas here in the Mara ecosystem are doing as well. I am currently in Pardamat. Now this is an area that in fact borders Naboisho Conservancy, but Pardamat is not yet a conservancy, and that in itself has its challenges. Well, I'm joined by Dixon Kaelo. He is in fact the CEO of the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now Dixon, what I see here in the Mara, this landscape is really interesting. I'm seeing that we are surrounded by fences over here in Pardamat, and also in the background we've got some cows and sheep and a number of establishments. Take us through exactly what this region is about.
Pardamat area is an area that is part of the Masai Mara ecosystem. It's an area that represents what would have happened in the entire Mara had conservancies not been created.
What would have happened if conservancies hadn't been created?
I started working in this area about 15 years ago, and I spent most of my life here doing research and looking at the interaction between livestock and wildlife. And I was amazed at how fast the changes were happening. The first big change was subdivision of Koyaki Group Ranch, where we are, into 150-acre plots owned by individual families. And we also saw during that time expansion of agriculture, expansion of fencing, and we were doing research to look at what this means to the life of the community and to wildlife. And we did realize how fast we were losing wildlife. Conflicts were escalating. We lost so many people killed by elephants. In fact, in my study, just in 10 years, we lost about 12 people killed by elephants.
Really?
And a lot of that was happening because areas that were traditionally used by elephants were becoming unavailable as more and more people settled in the landscape. We also saw a big shift towards from cattle keeping to sheep. Because what happened is a new breed of sheep was introduced called the Dopa sheep, which is fetches more price in the market.
Really?
And has ability to stay and graze within one small area. And what that means is that the sheep were able to take most of the grass, and cattle were excluded from the landscape, and we saw more cattle being pushed into more marginal areas, into the national reserve even, because the pasture was not available because most of it was being taken by sheep. And I think for me, most importantly, we saw the expansion of human settlements.
Yes, and in fact, that is really what we're seeing in the background. I mean, we are seeing settlements, we are seeing establishments there, but what impact did this have on the wildlife and also on the communities? You talk about human-wildlife conflict, but what are some of the other challenges?
In the 1970s, the rest of all the people you see here today were settled along the Pardamat Hill, which is what you see on our background.
Oh wow,
That's the farthest you could find any village. There was no village in this area.
Right.
What that means is exactly the place we are starting on today was a great migratory route for the Loita wildebeest. Now the Loita wildebeest is different from the Serengeti wildebeest.
Okay.
The Loita wildebeest stays in Kenya entirely. And it's used to be 160,000 individuals, now brought down to about 30,000 individuals.
Really?
That's a massive decline. And the main reason is that their breeding areas north of here were converted into wheat farms.
Oh gosh.
And that pushed them to an area of less rainfall, but also an area with a lot of lions. Remember, the Mara has perhaps nearly half the lions in the country.
Yes.
We have nearly a third of the wildlife in the whole country are in this particular place. And because of that massive decline, the tourism industry began feeling its impact because the number of sightings, the tourism experience began to decline as a result of wildlife numbers going down.
Right.
Even for the community, as they settled, on the same land, the number of livestock they could keep began to decline to the extent that in the 70s, we had maybe about 15 animals per adult. Right now, we are maybe down to 6 or 7, which means that they can no longer survive on livestock alone, and they would need alternative income.
Right. Well, I'm just looking at our surroundings here, and right in front of us, in fact, we're seeing fences. Let's have a walk through, because you said that this area, Pardamat, is a wildlife corridor, yet we are seeing so many fences around us. And how does this now affect the wildebeest in this specific area, for example, that borders Naboisho Conservancy?
In this particular area, which is as you have said, very close to Naboisho Conservancy, we have now people realizing that they can no longer move in the landscape as they should, and they are trying to preserve the pasture within their land parcel. And that's why the fencing are coming up.
Yeah, so
and the reason is that then they can graze their sheep, which as you can see is an improved version of the red Maasai sheep that we used to have in this landscape.
Right, so this area essentially is all fenced off by the Pardamat people because they want to improve their livestock.
Yeah, they want to improve their livestock, but also they want to exclude wildlife from taking their grass. They want to exclude wildlife from also taking their water. As you can see at the background there, where you see some soil, that's a dam.
Okay.
This family managed to sell quite a few of their herds to construct that dam. Now they don't want wildebeest when they come in large numbers to come and take that water as well. But remember also that the wildebeest have a disease they transmit called malignant catarrhal fever.
Okay.
They want to keep the wildebeest off so that their cows and their sheep will do better.
So by doing this, by fencing off areas, of course, the individuals are gaining from that. But what about the bigger picture? When we look at the larger ecosystem, how would it change if the people of Pardamat decided, okay, we're not going to fence the area and we will turn this region into a conservancy?
So when the fence comes up, the short-term benefits are very visible. You see, as you can see, the grass inside the fence vis-a-vis those outside are very different. You have much taller grass, you have better species that are very good and nutritious. But that is just for the short term.
Sure.
Because the reason why you see this doing better today is during the rainy season, all these sheep will be out grazing on land that hasn't yet been fenced.
Okay.
The moment all that land is fenced, it means that these sheep will have to stay in this parcel throughout the year.
Right.
Now, when you look at the stocking rates, the size of the land will even not sustain these sheep. So even the benefits we are seeing today are very short term. But by creating a conservancy and turning the entire Pardamat area into a conservancy, what the collective benefits will over time exceed the individual benefit that you will get from fencing the land. What we've seen, for example, in Naboisho now is a lot of the elephants being forced to stay in Naboisho. And when you go to Naboisho today, and I was there 5 years ago when I began working to establish it, you see how much woodland has been lost.
Really?
Because the impact of elephants was largely spread over a larger area, and right now it's only in a very small area.
And of course, isn't Pardamat also an area that has experienced a lot of poaching as well?
Yeah, so Pardamat is an area that has really experienced a high level of poaching. If you look at the three main hotspots, elephant conflict hotspots in the Mara, Pardamat is definitely one of them. And the main reason is that because of the fences, the elephants, of course, this is not an electric fence.
Yes.
Elephants will walk through them.
Yeah.
It has costed somebody a lot of money to keep it and to establish it. And so they generally begin seeing elephants as a nuisance.
Right.
And they start now collaborating with people who come from elsewhere to to support and participate in poaching.
So, Dixon, what is the Conservancies Association doing to try and encourage the people of this area and the greater Masai Mara, where conservancies haven't been established, to transform this into a conservancy?
The Masai Mara Conservancy Association, which is the umbrella body that brings together all the established conservancies in this area, has begun a discussion with the community. First of all, to create dialogue about the importance of wildlife, to create dialogue about the interaction between wildlife and livestock, which is not a new thing to most of the people in here, and to also begin looking at things from a long-term view and not being just focusing on the short-term benefits that we see today.
And Dixon, what then are the consequences of failing to plan, especially around this ecosystem of the Mara?
The major consequences of failing to plan in the Mara will include the collapse of our tourism industry. The Mara is known for tourism, and if we don't have wildlife, there will be no tourists. It's also going to be a very big challenge to the communities, because fences generally makes conservancies more, they are not able to generate the benefits that they would from being able to move in the landscape. And I think for me, even more importantly, is that the environment itself will be significantly affected.
All right, Dixon, thank you so much. And perhaps in some time when we come back, we will discover that this area has been converted into a conservancy.
It is our hope, and at Kenya Wildlife Conservancy Association, we are working with the government, with the Kenya Wildlife Service, to encourage creation of incentives, because one of the biggest challenge today is that there is really not much incentive to do conservation. There is a lot of incentives to do cultivation, not conservation. And so by providing incentives and putting in an arrangement through the Masai Mara Association, we will be able to secure this land for the future of our wildlife.
All right, well, let's certainly hope so. Thank you so much, Dixon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, from one unplanned area to the winning Naboisho Conservancy, we're heading over there in just a moment, where the celebrations have already begun.
May you know and to satisfaction that come with helping others. To care so much for a fellow man is a quality all too rare.
African Responsible Tourism Awards 2016, Mara Naboisho Conservancy, Gold, Best for Wildlife Conservation. And I'll hand it over both to the chairman, the landowner, and the chairman of the conservancy.
There is plenty of excitement in the air here in Naboisho Conservancy. People are celebrating because Naboisho won an awesome award, and that award was the African Responsible Tourism Award. And joining me now is Dr. Lars Lindquist. He is in fact the co-founder of Naboisho Conservancy, along with Dixon Kale, who we spoke to earlier. Now, Lars, this of course is an example of what other conservancies days can be like here in the Masai Mara region. We just went and visited one conservancy, well, one area that hasn't yet gotten to the point of becoming a conservancy. But let's first talk about the excitement and the joy. Congratulations
Well, thank you.
to Naboisho for winning this award. What does it mean to you as the co-founder and the people of Naboisho?
Oh, it means a lot. It means everything, really. And you set out to set up a conservancy, you have no clue how it's going to end. Just hope that it's going to be somehow successful in protecting animals, protecting wildlife, and helping communities to grow. But now, you know, it's been basically looked upon as an example for others to follow.
Well, how does this Naboisho Conservancy work? What has made it so successful?
I think essentially it is the partnership, the way we set up the partnership, the governance structure, the transparency of the work, that is really the winner of the award. Wildlife is protected and people benefit from it, but it's actually a very balanced way of working together, making decisions together from tourism industry, landowners, and other interest groups like Basecamp Foundation that I work with.
Right. So Lars, take us through what this conservancy means for the people. How are they benefiting directly from it?
Well, in many ways, I mean, the most obvious direct way is that they earn income from it.
How?
So, well, if you're a landowner and you decide or agree to put your land under conservation, you give away some rights, you forfeit some rights. Some of the rights you get back is to get paid per acre that you own.
Okay.
So if you own, for example, 60 acres of land in Naboisho Conservancy, your annual income from that is basically similar to a primary school teacher.
Oh wow, so you can imagine that really people here, people in the background behind us who are currently celebrating, they're celebrating for good reason, because whatever money they earn, of course, means so much to them and their families. How then do wildlife benefit from conservancies?
Well, wildlife would particularly benefit from the protection of the land, of the habitat that they have. So we're looking down here, you can see that untouched ecosystem.
Yeah.
So it's an intact ecosystem. And when you fractionate ecosystems by putting up fences, by farming, or by other activities, putting in infrastructure, you disturb that free roaming of wildlife. Poaching is, of course, a very, very severe problem that we know about here. Wildlife, such as elephants and lions, are really protected in the Conservancy. And we can see that wildlife are moving in large numbers, even after 6 months. So 6 years ago, already then, we knew that this has a real impact on the wildlife numbers.
How have you seen people's lives being transformed here in Naboisho?
I think the most obvious clear thing that we see is that people set aside a lot of their income for bursaries for education. So they had numbers of children going to school and doing higher education using funds from the income is really the best example of how it's benefited.
What sets Naboisho aside from other conservancies?
Well, I think it's, again, I mentioned the partnership, and I think it's the way we've invited on equal terms really the main stakeholders. So we have a board with 3 representatives from the landowners, 3 from the tourism industry, and then we have 1 from Basecamp Foundation as a founder with a swing vote. But all that decision making that is happening, I think I've been measuring up to over 700 decisions made over 6 years, and not even once we have taken a vote. We've always agreed on the way forward. So I think that is the key thing for us, to discuss, agree, and decide to stand behind those decisions.
What would you say are some of the challenges that face conservancies here in the Mara ecosystem?
I think the main challenge here is the lack of coordination and planning around the conservancies, because the way they happened was, you know, a crisis. We felt that this land is going to be subdivided. It was actually being subdivided and fenced off and sold off, and there would be nothing left for the community and for the history and the culture of the Maasai. So I think, you know, the huge challenge here is they all happened one by one in an uncoordinated fashion. With the Mara Conservancies Association, that is really the new ace up the sleeve in trying to create that overall coordination for the future.
And speaking about the future, what's your vision when we talk about the Mara ecosystem?
My vision is clearly that my grandchildren will come out here and, first of all, recognize and understand why I spent so much time over 15 years out here and why I was hiding out in the Mara, but then being able to really appreciate and understand the intrinsic values that you have out here. I mean, you have the wildlife, but you also have space. You also have, an environment that is absolutely amazing.
Right, well, of course, it certainly is a success. Congratulations once again. But it wasn't easy to get to this point, and we'll be speaking about that just after the break. Lars, thanks very much for joining us. This is NTV Wild Talk. We are coming to you from the Naboisho Conservancy, celebrations taking place behind us because Naboisho won the Africa Responsible Tourism Award. We're taking a break, and remember, this episode has been made possible thanks to Safari Link that flew us here to the Mara, and also thanks to the Eagle View Camp that accommodated us. Now though, time for our wild guess question. What is the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association and the Kenya Wildlife Service doing to encourage communities to conserve? What is the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association and the Kenya Wildlife Service doing to encourage communities to conserve? Use the hashtag NTV Wild on Twitter or like our NTV Wild Facebook page and post your answer on the timeline. Private messages won't be considered. The first person to answer correctly wins 2 nights for 2 at the incredible Base Camp Explorer Kenya in the Masai Mara Game Reserve, and will have the opportunity to stay in the Obama tent. It's the same tent that President Obama stayed in when he visited the Mara as senator. The prize includes the option to spend one of the nights at the Base Camp Eagle View in Naboisho Conservancy, and is inclusive of 2 game drives. The winner also gets 1 bottle of wine courtesy of Wines of the World and a gift hamper courtesy of Wildlife Direct. Terms and conditions apply, and last week's lucky winner was Duncan. Welcome back to NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. We're coming to you from Naboisho Conservancy here in the Greater Masai Mara. And this episode has been made possible thanks to Safari Link Airlines that flew us here, and also to Eagle View Camp that have accommodated us. Here now is a reminder of our wild guess question. What is the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association and the Kenya Wildlife Service doing to encourage communities to conserve? What is the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association and the Kenya Wildlife Service doing to encourage communities to conserve? Use the hashtag NTV Wild on Twitter or like our NTV Wild Facebook page and post your answer on the timeline. Private messages won't be considered. The first person to answer correctly wins 2 nights for 2 at the incredible Base Camp Explorer Kenya in the Masai Mara Game Reserve, and will have the opportunity to stay in the Obama tent. It's the same tent that President Obama stayed in when he visited the Mara as senator. The prize includes the option to spend one of the nights at the Base Camp Eagle View in Naboisho Conservancy, and is inclusive of 2 game drives. The winner also gets 1 bottle of wine courtesy of Wines of the World and a gift hamper courtesy of Wildlife Direct. Terms and conditions apply, and last week's lucky winner was Duncan Chege. So Naboisho Conservancy here in the Masai Mara won the African Responsible Tourism Award, but it was never easy to convince the people of Naboisho to turn this area into a conservancy. And now I'm joined by John Sangeni. Thank you for joining us, John. He is the chair of the Naboisho Land Holding Company. John, walk with me as we talk. Tell us, what does the Land Holding Company first of all do here?
The land holding company is in charge of the leases. Central members have signed their leases to land holding company. So it's a company in charge of land and leases.
Now, it was never easy to begin with to convince the people of Naboisho to agree to give up some of their land and create space for wildlife. Take us through what it took to convince the communities.
It is true from the beginning at the year 2010, it was difficult to convince landlords to lease their land, because at the moment there was only one camp, Oseki camp, which was not able to pay the leases. So they will start with a very low payment compared with other conservancies. That was one of the reasons why they were not able. The second reason was that there before there was Mara North, Olarok Conservancy and Motorogi, of which this place was to be a settlement area at the beginning because they've already moved from other conservancies.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So what were they resisting? Did they feel that perhaps they wouldn't, like you said, get enough money? And did they maybe think that people like the landholding company or anybody else had different motives?
Maybe the motive was that they are feeling that maybe the whole land, because Mara North and the other conservancies have already gone, that this was only remaining part of Koyaki Group Ranch. So they are worried that everything is going for conservation and no space for livestock and settlement.
Okay,
That was a big worry.
so they were very concerned
Yes.
that they'd have no room for their livestock. Yes. So how then were they convinced to give up their land for the wildlife and also for their livestock?
It was a task that was done by all of us, that we as the directors of landholding company, Pesca Foundation, we had to convince them that we are going to make a management plan that is going to accommodate tourism, wildlife and livestock for grazing. And at the moment we thank God that we have a grazing plan that all over we have grazing animals, wildlife and tourism working together.
So really, I mean, if we look at this land around us, it really does look very, very untouched as well. But as you mentioned, this Naboisho Conservancy works for everybody. It works for the community, it works for their livestock and also for the wild animals. You talked about controlled grazing as well. What are some of the other benefits that the landholders are getting?
For a Maasai, once the grazing for livestock is there, that's a benefit number one, of which I can assure you that look at this grass, this shorter.
Yeah.
This was a grazing place for the last 1 month.
Okay.
We can go to the conservancy get the taller grasses,
Yeah.
because it is a rotational grazing according to plan. Right. This was just left the other time for it to grow again. Benefit number two is the issue of the guarantee payment. That now, we thank God, we have about 6 camps at the moment, and now they have paid more compared to 2010. 2010 we were paying 2,000 per hectare per year. By the moment we are paying 3,800 per hectare per year. It has grown up.
Right.
With an increment of 8% annually.
Okay, and with those camps, no doubt, they are also employing local people.
70% of the employees in the camps are from the community. We have also the rangers, 36 of them purely from the community. So employment is also another benefit. And in Naboisho, we enjoy what you call benefit sharing. Comparing Naboisho with other conservancies, if a camp is put in my land, I don't take 100% benefit.
Okay.
It is split among everybody.
Right.
I take 50%. The neighboring parcels will take 20%, and the whole community will take 30% that goes to bursaries. So we have split the benefit to everybody.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So really, communities here in Naboisho are benefiting a great deal from this conservancy. What is the landholding company doing to try encourage perhaps other people to give their land up for wildlife?
I want to tell you that all the 600 landowners have signed 15 years lease.
Oh wow.
Because after the camps were established, the benefits were shared according that everybody is getting something out of conservation. Projects like classrooms, water pans, and health clinics were done, and then everybody was happy even to move out of the conservancy. Nobody is inside.
Really?
They have all moved to what we call host parcels.
Okay, so clearly they have learned that it works.
The host parcel means leave this land for conservation, I'll lease you another land outside, and the payment will be done according to hectares, like what's happening here.
Right, however many acres
Yes,
or hectares they own. And you said that the lease is now about 15 years.
Yes.
Initially, when you tried to convince the communities to sign the lease, surely it wasn't 15 years, was it?
It was 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Because of the worries.
Yeah.
Because of what I've told you, that they are seeing that now we are coming to take the only last part of the land for tourism. And initially, it was no grazing plan in the other conservancies. So it was also another worry because Mara North, obviously, there's no grazing plan.
You perhaps, are from the Mara region. For you personally, how have you viewed the improvement of the ecosystem due to the conservancies?
In fact, what has made Naboisho to grow to this level is there used to be an annual ecosystem that we come and brainstorm on how to improve. We have picked the strength of every conservancy, and we have sat down with our partners to make sure that the ecosystem is protected. And I, as a person, I've seen so many development steps that everybody has benefit out of conservancy. We have seen now comparing livestock farming and conservancy. Those one can go together. But half maize and wheat, we cannot go along with conservation.
Yeah.
So masters have realized it's only conserving wildlife can allow them to graze, because wheat is done and it's closed and it's meant only until harvesting. But this one they are grazing all over. So they appreciate the presence of wildlife in their midst.
All right, John,
Yes.
thank you so much, and congratulations to you and everybody here for winning this incredible award.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. And in just a moment, we will find out more about what the future holds for the Masai Mara. So with me now is Daniel Sopia. He is the chair of the Masai Mara Wildlife Conservancies Association. Daniel, thanks for joining us on NTV Wild Talk. Now, the awards ceremony, everybody was excited. Congratulations to Naboisho Conservancy. Present were government officials. What commitments did you get from them?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the commitment we get from the county government of Narok is, first of all, we have seen about 15 MCAs, we have seen the CC for tourism, which is really a great show for us. And I think the commitment I've made, actually, the special county special planning, which is actually going out to solve most of the problems that we are facing here in the Mara, particularly the issue to do with fencing. And also the issues of poaching. We actually mentioned about the collaboration between the reserve and the Conservancy's management security team that will be able to work together to combat wildlife crimes within the ecosystem.
And when we talk about the management of the Masai Mara ecosystem, we know that it is split into the triangle, the reserve, and then the conservancies. Is everybody uniting and working together for the betterment of the entire region?
Yeah, absolutely. We are all very much united, given that wildlife has no corridors, they have no boundaries. So the wildlife that is in the triangle is the same animal that crossed to the other side of the reserve, as well as extending further to the conservancies and even going beyond the conservancies. So with that, actually, wildlife movement, it has enabled all the stakeholders to start thinking together and working together.
Well, you know, we are right here in the Naboisho Conservancy, and of course it is a success story, but not all of the Mara has success stories around it, as we saw earlier today. Daniel, what are some of the key challenges facing the greater Mara ecosystem?
I think the main very key challenges, one of them is actually human population, because I mean the growth of the rate at which the population in the Mara is growing per annum is 8%, and that's really worrying. So this is actually leading to a number of issues whereby the wildlife corridors are being closed because of human dispersing, and also the issues of fencing are actually coming up as a result of the people trying to satisfy the growing population by making sure there is a lot of number of land uses, and people wanted to fence to make sure they have a number of livestock within a given area, and also be able to do some cultivations. Quite a number of things are actually coming that are not compatible. And that's actually a very big challenge in terms of trying to conserve the wildlife here in the Mara.
Well, you know, when you talk about growing populations and land use, of course, the Mara is getting almost, one could say, littered with different camps coming up in all sorts of places. And just recently, in fact, a number of camps have been ordered to be shut down because they stand in the way of wildlife corridors. How is the management dealing with these camps that are sprouting up?
I think with actually within the conservancies particularly, we work on a bed ratio. And actually, I mean, most of the conservancies here in the Masai Mara, we have, I mean, they work on a carrying capacity. So one bed is actually for 350 acres. So I think the issues of encroachment and also the issues of unplanned development and the issues of more camps coming along is an issue that we have actually managed to tackle within the conservancies. I know also there's a lot of efforts in the reserve. They are actually now, with the coming out of the Masai Mara National Reserve Management Plan, those are the kind of the issues that the management plan will be able to address. But within the conservancies, I can say that issue has actually been taken care of, because we have management plans, we have the regulations that are in place, and they're being adhered to.
Well, how important is it that this management plan spreads across the entire ecosystem and it's not just kept to the conservancies?
I know within the law, each and every conservancy will have to have a management plan, as well as for the government protected areas like the National Reserve. And now currently what we are working as an umbrella organization representing all the conservancies within the ecosystem is to come up with an ecosystem plan, management plan, that will be able actually to bring in all the other management plans. Then we'll be able to focus on the bigger picture And I think by doing so, we will be able to address the issues of road developments or unplanned developments, issues of fencing that are actually emerging from all sorts of corners in this ecosystem, and as well as trying to also counter-attack on other big issues that we are currently suffering as a result of caused by the population pressures.
Right, and you know, when you talk about the management of the Mara, of course, as we said, it is a large ecosystem with very many different managers. Are the managers all getting along, or is there politics in the Mara?
Maybe I wouldn't say there wasn't politics in the Mara. There was politics, but at this point in time, I think that we have actually seen a very good coordinated effort with the coming up of the umbrella organization, which is MMWCA. Well, our main role is actually to coordinate and to bring all the stakeholders and all the conservancies to make sure there is a very good coordination level. So what we have witnessed in the last 2 years, there has been an improvement in terms of coordination between the National Reserve, the conservancies, and in between the conservancies, the tourism partners, and the landowners and the conservancies managers. So there has been a very good improvement in terms of coordination, people working together, people reason together, right, and people also be able to focus together.
And looking ahead, what are some of the immediate, firstly, short-term measures that need to take place to protect the ecosystem here?
One of the very immediate measures that need to happen actually is the issues of the county spatial planning. And if that will delay, we need a strategy. And one of the things that was mentioned by the county government today in the celebration was actually to come up with a strategy and a short-term planning strategy before the spatial planning to be able to address the issues of the fencing that is coming up on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the kind of the quick wins. So we will be able to engage as an organization, the county government, and also working with other partners within this ecosystem to come up with this immediate strategy that can also be able to address the issues that are emerging as we actually wait the issues of the spatial planning, which will be a long-term issue.
And when we talk about the entire ecosystem, what's your vision of the future? Is it a positive one?
Very positive. It's actually very positive because back in 2006, that's the first conservancy was started in 2006, and 10 years down the line, we got 16 conservancies. So you can actually see that this is a movement that everybody is very much happy about it. The landowners are really happy. They're giving their private-owned land that they could have done something else, different wildlife conservation. And this is just because of the benefits and all those other things that they can be able to get by practicing or putting their land within a conservancy. So we see that there is a long-term vision, and we are actually working together as a community, as the stakeholders in the ecosystem, as a county, right, to drive that vision forward.
All right, so we certainly are on the right track.
Absolutely.
That's good news.
Yeah,
Daniel,
yeah,
thank you so much for joining us on NTV Wild Talk.
You're welcome, thanks.
All right, we are coming to you from Naboisho Conservancy. That is the winner of the African Responsible Tourism Award. But for now, we're shifting focus on NTV Wild Talk. It's time for our Wild Pick segment. Here are some of your photos. Sami Tarange sent in this photo taken at Prison Island in Zanzibar. It was a selfie with tortoises, and he says he loves nature. Then there's Walter Bett, who sent a photo taken at Apoa Place in Eldoret. He was explaining to his spouse about how lions hunt their prey, and he says he loves big cats and lions are his favourite. Thomas Omweri sent in this photo taken at the Montague Mountains in Cape Town, South Africa. He was posing by a spring source at the mountains and says he appreciates nature and the need to conserve forests because they are the source of water, which is life. Taken on Mount Kenya, Paul Nganga sent us this selfie. He said that he was enjoying the beauty of our highest mountain. Then there's Betty Geruto, who sent in this photo taken in the middle of a waterway at Kolol Resort in Elgeyo Marakwet. She was posing for a photo and says that she wanted to show her outdoorsy personality during her adventures in the Rift Valley. If you want your photos showcased on our Wild Pick segment, just like our NTV Wild Facebook page and send your photos celebrating nature via private message. Include your full name, tell us where the photo was taken, what you were doing and why. You can also post your photo on Twitter using the hashtag NTV Wild. Selected photos will be retweeted, shared on air and on our NTV. Important an ecosystem to be degraded. Approximately 30% of Kenya's wildlife is found in the Greater Masai Mara, and it generates billions of shillings. Now remember, the Masai word Naboisho means unity, and the Naboisho Conservancy has really demonstrated how great the Mara could be if we all united and worked together. Let's give it a try. That's where we leave it on NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. Thanks very much for watching. See you again Tuesday, 10 p.m. Naboisho Conservancy has so much to offer. If you want to visit, you can get there by road. As long as you have a 4x4 vehicle, drive along the Narok Sekinani Road to Nkoilale Trading Centre, take a right turn, and in 2 kilometers you'll get to Talek and then into the Conservancy. Or SafariLink Airlines can fly you there. Just get off at the Ol Seki airstrip. Your accommodation package should be inclusive of park fees, so you don't have to make an additional payment. There's so much to do in Naboisho, from game drives that give you the chance to see an abundance of wildlife, to guided walking safaris in the wild, and also bush camping. You can learn more about the Maasai culture and ongoing conservation and community projects. There's plenty of accommodation available in Naboisho, including the Base Camp Eagle View for a luxurious experience, to the Base Camp Wilderness for a truly wild experience. For more information, check out www